Good evening, everyone. Is this on? Okay, I don't have a clock, so excuse me. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to check on this. Yes. So good evening, everyone. Good to be here. Grateful for Upaya for allowing me to speak. As Noah mentioned, I used to be a resident here, and I just stepped out of residency just a few months ago, actually. Just stepped out. I just stepped out in March. Really happy to see the Zendo open to the public. Upaya has been closed for the pandemic for quite a while, for a few years, and it's just such a treat to be here with all of you. Very grateful again to be here. Thank you for coming. And tonight, what I wanted to talk about, I don't know did you mention my title, Noah? I love my title. Taking Time to Transition is the name of my title. And I chose that because it has great alliteration, but primarily because I've stepped out of Upaya. It's a big transition. And also I've noticed that in many ways we're all going through big transitions in our lives. The WHO, not the band, the World Health Organization, recently, just in May, announced like, hey, COVID is not a global health emergency anymore. And I think all of us in our lives, of course, we know transitions, but this is a big time of transition. And Upaya itself, it's slowly opening up. So all this movement, and I thought, okay, some teachers had mentioned to me, is like, hey, you step out of residency, after a while, things are going to be a bit different stepping back into the marketplace. So I felt, okay, I've been here, I've been training diligently, lovingly with my companions. Now I'm back in the marketplace. What have I learned? Like, what have I learned in residential practice that can support me? And primarily, what can I bring to this talk to maybe highlight some lessons which can help all of us in our transitions in our lives, right? So as we all know, we go through transitions all the time. The death of someone we love, a new job, a new home, a session, a practice period. All these things are disorienting. So what can ground us? What can really settle us down? Excuse me, I am a little nervous and a little chapped. It's a little hot. Can we open the windows, Senko? Yeah, could we? We probably had the AC going on, right? Phew! I'm from Miami, but we have air conditioning. Thanks, guys. So, here at Upaya, we have, could I wait for y'all? Okay. Oh yeah, I'm on a clock here. Okay. So yeah, back to transitions, taking time to transition. Transitions are disorienting, and at the same time, they are wonderful opportunities. They're rich opportunities to understand who we really are, right? So specifically, they can serve as passages to really inquire, who are you really? With the pandemic, I think we've all come out of it inquiring, who are we? Who are we in members of our families, in our communities, in our nation, in our globe? What have we learned about ourselves? And of course, here at Upaya, we have great language that really helps us understand transitions. So we say, we are in a container, right? The container could be anything. It could be zazen, it could be liturgy, it could be sesshin, jukai, ordination. Any of the rites of passages that we have can serve as a container. And what's fascinating about these containers is that there are anchors in them. So for example, in a ritual space that we create here at Upaya, the intention, the precision, the preparation of the space, the community coordination in the rite of passage provide ways to ground us. Now, life, as we know, this is a Buddhist center, a characteristic, hey Chuck, I didn't see you there. A characteristic of existence is flux, it's change, right? We're going through flux all the time. But by doing these things in ritual, we're able to bookmark this threshold, this change in our conscious, in our bodies. Yeah. So you might have heard Roshi John in the past teach that to cross a threshold, the word threshold shares the same root word as the verb to thrash. When you go through a threshold, you are thrashed about. You undergo a thrashing. Your sense of who you are is what's the word I'm looking for? It's complicated. It's created to be a very complex situation, and this thrashing is a gift, for it allows one to profoundly and experientially inquire, again, as I mentioned, who are you really? Now, to note, this is not unique to Zen. It's not unique to Buddhist practice. This spiritual exercise of asking who you really are has spanned the globe throughout the ages. So in our Soto Zen sect, our founder, Eihei Dogen, is the guy right behind me, which I really, every time I'm up here, I love pointing him out. I don't know, I feel like we bring him in. He was a 13th century Japanese monk. He would phrase it as to turn the light inwards. He would say, and I'm sorry if you've heard this many times, he would say, to study the Buddha Dharma is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be illumined by the 10,000 things. Also, similarly, about 1,500 years before Dogen, in the Temple of Delphi in Greece, the maxim, know thyself. A few hundred years later in Greece, Socrates, the unexamined life isn't worth living. So this is maybe a question, a spiritual exercise, which is inherent to the human condition, right? Now, going back to transitions, we all know they can be disorienting, right? We've all gone through transitions. And what I'd like to do today is talk about a few kind of pithy statements that we might hear here at Upaya after undergoing a transition. Because if you are here, they might seem generic. They might seem like these common phrases that we hear, but actually under a microscope, if you really examine them, they're actually quite profound. So that's what I want to do. But before I do, I just want to talk a little bit about impermanence. I mentioned to a few people about this talk, look, I'm talking about transitions. Transitions are so important in our lives. Let's really understand them. And a few people wisely said, hey, but aren't you a Buddhist? Isn't Buddhism all about transitions? It's like, yes, it is. So I just want to spend a few minutes just talking about transitions and talking about a moment in my life where I really got to taste a transition, a powerful transition that I still look back with a lot of love. So just to say, existence is always in flux. We know this empirically through our understanding of the function of subatomic particles, right? Things are always rising and they're passing in and out of existence, right? We also know this experientially. Whatever we encounter is going to change. Right? How do we bring this into our lives? Fully acknowledging that we ourselves will pass allows us to live our lives a lot more with compassion, with a lot more levity, and with a lot more beauty. I think if we can appreciate our lives, everything we interact with actually becomes a lot more beautiful. So I'm going to share with you a very personal story that I haven't told to too many people, but it's such a beautiful story. And my mother, who's in the building, hi Mom, was actually kind of there for this, not an event, I guess it's an event. When I was 13 years old, my mother gifted me a 2-month-old Rottweiler. As far back as I could remember, I had wanted a dog, but our life conditions just didn't allow it. So finally, by the time I was 13, she had gifted me a Rottweiler. And what was actually kind of ironic about this, and I don't know if you ever knew this, at the age of 8, my good friend at the time, Daniel Rocco, remember him? His Rottweiler had bit me, and he left a pretty nasty scar for years. So it's really interesting that you, out of the blue, come up with a Rottweiler, right? A dog that I kind of had a lot of fear around. But I raised him, and he was my brother. Really, I mean, I took care of him. I walked him, I washed him, I fed him, I trained him. His name was Hercules. I loved The Sandlot. Have you ever seen The Sandlot? Great movie. And as Rottweilers are, they're intelligent, they're well-behaved. And he was that. He was intelligent, well-behaved, he was affectionate. He never got into any trouble. And unfortunately, he, at a very, very young age, was diagnosed with hip dysplasia and was just given a few years to live. So for those that want to get dogs, don't go to puppy mills. Yeah. But Hercules, surprisingly, lived a long life. He lived 11 years. It's great. I mean, he was just such a pal, my best buddy. The last month of his life was challenging. He had lost his capacity to keep his weight on his hind legs. And even if he was on the slimmer side of a male Rottweiler, he weighed about 100 pounds. Male Rottweilers usually go to about 110. I had bought him a harness, and I wrapped it around his hind legs, and I would hold him up as I would take him on walks. Yeah. Now, some family members and friends, they're heartbroken that Hercules' new reality was this way, right? And they felt that he was suffering a lot. But I was clear. No one knew him better than me. I mean, I was with him all the time, and I really observed him. And my underlying principle was always maintaining a high quality of life. And when I saw him, he was in high spirits. If anything, I noticed when he was around family members and friends that felt bad for him, he reflected their pity of him. Yeah. And as soon as they left and I was there with him, all peppy and taking him on a walk, he was great. Actually, when we would go on walks, he was happier than ever because he was such a well-trained dog. I would keep him off leash and he would come on command. Now that I had him on a harness, we were so close all the time. So he was so happy. The last day of his life, he had lost the ability to hold his bowel movement. He had this look of shame and his inability to control his body. Imagine, he was intelligent. He was potty trained at 2.5 months. Like in a week, he picked it up, you know? And so I did my best to quickly clean up after him with my usual good-spirited tone and words of encouragement. And at the time, I was renting a part of my mom's home, and I was living there with my ex-partner, going to university. And we had set up a towel in my living room. We moved the table aside, we set up a towel. I took him out to see if he could walk. He couldn't walk. He collapsed on himself completely. His breathing was irregular. He was gasping for air. So I picked him up. I brought him over to my living room. I set him down on the towel. And as he lay down, he kept gasping for air. And every time I did, I caressed his sweet face, such a pretty dog, with a calm tone, and I reassured him. Good boy, Hercules. And he relaxed, he eased up, and he would lay back down. And this went on 2-3 times, until the last time, again, I caressed his face. Good boy, Hercules. He again relaxed serenely. He lay down, and he passed. Now we stayed with him. Take a little water. Now we stayed with him quite a while in silence. We then wrapped his body with cloths and towels that we had used for him. We took him outside to our front yard. We dug a hole about 5 or 6 feet deep. Then we laid his body on the earth, and slowly and methodically, with the help of a very kind neighbor, Tony, if you're here, hi, thank you. We slowly put dirt on him, all the way up until we got to the level of the surface. And we had bought a young but strong mango plant. It wasn't even a tree yet. We put it over his body, and the mango tree grew. That was back 2008. And now the mango tree is 20 feet strong, producing beautiful, sweet mangoes. Now I was close to Hercules. He was my best buddy. You know, although I grew up with a lot of cousins always around me, I was an only child. So Herc was my pal. Imagine 13 to 24, right? Always with me. Such a great buddy. And I feel so honored to have been with him for his last moments. When he passed, and even now in retrospect, I think of that moment with tenderness. I have no real sadness or grief around it, just so much love. I feel grateful that I was with him for his last moments, and that I was able to really tend to him, for him to go peacefully. And what's so fascinating, I think, about this situation is that it's seemingly a frightful situation. You're with someone you love so tenderly when they're going. But all that comes up, it's a lot of sentiment, but what comes up is just so much love. Yeah. And so what I find so just incredible about this experience, this memory, is that when I was there with him, I had no preconceived notions of what his death was going to look like. I was just with him. Yeah. And I think this is such an important point. Dropping away preconceived notions. This teaches me, to surrender my expectations to the causes and conditions of the moment as they arise. And I believe this is so important, and it has supported me right now in my life as I undergo this transition, as we all undergo this transition. How can we totally be with that moment as causes and conditions arise, with each moment? We lean into our lives, as we say. And so if you come to Upaya for a session or a practice period, you might hear after it Take care of yourself. Be gentle with yourself and others. Rest. And you might hear, you think you're normal, but you're not. Yeah, this is such an important lesson. Undergoing a transition like a death of a loved one, a major surgery, months and years in isolated quarantine, a new job, home, sesshin, residential practice. Things aren't as they seem. You might have a lot of energy. You might want to do a million things, but you are not who you think you are. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go, and no one to be. A reasonable question which might arise from this recommendation is, okay, if I'm not who I think I am, if things aren't what they seem to be, so then who am I? And what is this? These are great questions. And again, their response depends on each passing moment's causes and conditions. When we respond based on some idea from the past or future, some aim or past accomplishment or goal, we create a separation of our in-the-moment selves and the past or our future selves, where we were or where we wish to be. This is exactly what we chant here at Upaya once, maybe a few times a week, when we say, a hair's breadth deviation and you're out of harmony. Wow, I can't believe I did that. The song of the jewel mirror awareness. This separation or deviation is by definition delusory thought. This creation of a duality between the me now and the me that I want to be, or the me that I was, that achieved X, Y, or Z, that's make-believe. That's not real. Such an important lesson. It has been for me, which I'm still grappling with, and I think for all of us. For this reason, during our transitory moments in life, our big ones, it's important not to hold on to any one specific view or perspective, but to stay open. Because everything is, in fact, and it is always fresh and new. It is always fresh and new. So how important it is to be open to new information as it arises, possibly even open to concurrent multiple realities simultaneously. More than one thing can be true at the same time. To live in this way, by not putting anything in front of us as an object of pursuit, is this wonderful teaching and practice of aimlessness. Aimlessness is one of the three doors of liberation, alongside emptiness and signlessness. Aimlessness doesn't mean we live our lives lost without direction, but rather as the radical teaching that our lives are inherently in themselves full of purpose, in its very manifestation. And we can only understand our life's purpose in the arising of the particular causes and conditions at the moment. I'm going to beat that horse. Particular causes and conditions in the moment. And I do that for you, but also for me. Yeah. So I really appreciate this. It's great. I really appreciate this teaching by Shohaku Okumura Roshi. He comes from a lineage where they have this teaching of Zazen being good for nothing. Zazen is good for nothing Zazen. And he really drills it. He's like, oh, why am I sitting so many hours? It's good for nothing. And I just love this teaching, and I've shared it with others, but for me, it's just been really impactful. For him, his life has meaning, even if he engages primarily in a practice that is good for nothing. In fact, maybe because it is good for nothing. According to Shohaku Okumura Roshi, Zazen is such an authentic practice because it is good for nothing. There's no destination, there is no goal, just sitting. And he speaks about this occasion, being alone in the Zendo, where he's not a teacher, he's not a priest, he's not in a social function as a preacher, he's just actually by himself, just sitting in. And he speaks about how he experiences this deep peace, and that he knows he doesn't have to be a good boy. He doesn't have to be a good boy for anyone. And I think back on myself, remembering growing up as a kid and my father telling me, oh, you're a good boy. And this then becomes the carrot. Oh, I want to be the good boy, right? And in many ways, maybe we can think about our own lives where we want to be the good boy or the good girl or the good, wonderful, non-binary person. We always aim to be someone. We don't have to be that. We don't have to prove ourselves to anyone. By simply being human beings, you are endowed with the full respect and value of a human being. This is actually the foundation of human rights. Or as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, does the rose have to be something? Does the rose have to do something? No. The purpose of a rose is to be a rose. Your purpose is to be yourself. You don't have to run anywhere to become someone else. There's no need to run, strive, search, or struggle. Just be. He says, we are already a Buddha. So why not just take the hand of another Buddha and practice walking meditation? This is, in his own beautifully poetic, skillful way, Dogen Zenji writes in the opening lines of recommending Zazen to all people. The real way circulates everywhere. How could it require practice or enlightenment? The essential teaching is fully available. How could effort be necessary? Furthermore, the entire mirror is free of dust. Why take steps to polish it? Nothing is separate from this very place. Why journey away? Everything we want is right here, right now. The person we want to be is right here, right now. The place we want to go is right here, right now. This stopping and seeing the pursuit as pursuit is a moment of awakening. Or as Roshi Joan, I think, brilliantly puts it, every time we return to our breath is a moment of awakening. Every time we return to our breath, that is a moment of awakening. So what Roshi Joan and Okumura Roshi and Thich Nhat Hanh and Dogen Zenji propose is actually countercultural and radical for our contemporary world, because everywhere we turn, we are not enough. We absorb this messaging into our psyches, into our stored consciousness, unknown to us. Our so-called deficiencies are highlighted and magnified to scare us into consuming the next product that will fulfill us. The stopping itself is revolutionary. In the very sense of the word, in the very sense of the word, it is revolutionary, for it turns us around to look at ourselves. It urges us to stop chasing after new titles, experiences, new possessions, to achieve happiness, fulfillment, or the next thing. Such an important lesson. And I believe it's a remedy to an ethical dilemma we increasingly find ourselves in our technologized and time-constrained world. So this is something I recently came across. Some of you might know it. In 1973, two social psychologists wanted to test what attributes would make someone stop to help a stranger in obvious distress. Okay, how am I doing with time? Great. Was it the innate personality traits of a person that would have them stop to help someone in distress? Was it their cultural conditioning? Was it the circumstances of a particular situation? So they tested this hypothesis at the Princeton Theological Seminary with participants studying to become religious leaders. They call this the Good Samaritan experiment. And just to remind y'all, if you don't know it also, in the book of Luke, Jesus recounts of a person lying on the ground in distress. He had been ambushed, left for dead on the road to Jericho from Jerusalem. People pass him by, a religious leader included, ignores him, until a so-called Good Samaritan, someone even seen as an enemy, stops to tend to this person's wounds, offer him some food, some water, and shelter. When Jesus asks, who of all those was the good neighbor, the answer was clearly the Samaritan, the so-called enemy. Jesus exclaims, go and do likewise. Now, we all, I'm sure, would love to be a good Samaritan, right? But what I think we find with this experiment that I'll get into is that in our ever-increasing busy lives, that actually might be harder than we expect. So back to the experiment, the Good Samaritan experiment. Two psychologists, Darley and Batson, start by psychologically priming their group by splitting them into two. They ask one group to write a sermon. Remember, people training to be religious leaders. One group to write a sermon on the Good Samaritan parable. The other group to write a speech on job opportunities. They then get them together again, and they ask them to go present their sermon speech at another building on campus. They split this group into three groups. They inform 1/3 of the participants to rush because they're late. They inform the second group, they're not late, but they're just about on time, so they better go. And they inform the last group that they have plenty of time. On the way to the other building, they plant a person who's on the ground, coughing and moaning in obvious distress. Now, who do you think stopped? Overall, 40% of the participants stopped. 63% from the early group, so the group that had a lot of time. 45% from the on-time group, and 10% from the late group, regardless if they wrote a sermon or a speech. As the researchers noted, and this is where I think it gets interesting, ethics becomes a luxury as the speed of our daily life increases. They go on to say, time quickening narrows the cognitive map. So I'll say that one more time because it's ethics becomes a luxury as the speed of our daily life increases. Time quickening narrows the cognitive map. In other words, our ability to perceive things narrows the more pressed for time we are. Similarly, if we approach the important transitions of our lives with a rush to get things done, we will miss out on all the ingredients of our life that is offered, that is there, if we just can see it. Aimlessness proposes a way to walk in the world with a fundamental reshift. It promises us a qualitative richness in our lives through the cherishing of each passing moment. When we fully give ourselves to each moment, seeing it fully as the end in itself, we allow the possibility of a widening or enriching of our lives. That is why I don't look back at the death of my beloved Hercules with grief, but actually with a deep appreciation, the deep love. The moments of his life were some of the most beautiful moments. We were together so deeply. So similarly, in difficult transitions, when the going gets tough, lean into it. Throw yourself into it with no end in mind. In fact, our focus to an activity as an end in itself. I believe this reshifting can help us be ethical and caring human beings in times of crisis, and even more so today, right? We are in a climate crisis, right? We have to do so much. We have to rush. The world is exploding. We're dying. Look at the heat. So I think I'm a little faster than I was planning on being, but that's great. I'll end with, I want to end with something pragmatic because I wanted to give you something. I just didn't want to talk here. I want to give you a practice. And I found this, I think is a beautiful practice by Thich Nhat Hanh that he proposes on aimlessness. His words make this seemingly difficult practice tangible. And this is it. So he says, waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and to look at all beings with the eyes of love. Say it one more time. Waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and to look at all beings with the eyes of love. Thanks, everyone.